hawk and the hedgehog shall possess it, and the owl and the raven shall live in it. It is hard to know what to do with these strange and cryptic words, isn't it? I know what to do with the words of Jesus when he says, love your enemies, right? I know how to preach that. I have preached that on many occasions. I know what to do with Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. I know what to do there. I also know what to do when the Apostle Paul says that the love of God makes us more than conquerors. The Bible, however, is filled with phrases that do not always promote positive thinking. The Bible is filled with cryptic and confusing passages that don't always make us initially feel good. Okay? One of my favorite Christian philosophers, Soren Kierkegaard, he says, the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. Okay? The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. Now, what is it that makes us miserable? It's the darkness of the world and the darkness of our interior lives, right? And the darkness of our interpersonal relationships. There is something from which to be saved. Let me say that again. There is something from which we are being saved, right? And it's important to kind of keep that in mind, that there's a danger, right? Not a danger of, being tormented in hell and the flames of hell and the devil, stabbing you with a fork. I know some of you Catholics have that guilt, right, Olivia? No? It's not like that. It's this strange sense that we're right here on the edge, right? And we're enjoying our relationships and we're all having vacations and it's fun and the football season is coming. But every once in a while, you can see how it could slip this way or slip that way. And the poison, the toxicity, right, of hatred and bitterness, right, can really hurt us and flame up. I think that's what this passage is about. Isaiah is writing at a time when Assyria is threatening, and then Babylon is threatening, and then Persia is threatening, and he's writing from the point of view of a displaced people, right? The Israelites, the Hebrews, are displaced by these dominant nations, right? And the argument he's making is that the reason this is happening is because the Israelites have broken covenant, right? They've lost that sense of neighbor relationship, right? And the wholeness that God wants to bring about. And so the hawk and the hedgehog shall possess it. This very place, right, that you consider hospitable and pleasant, and isn't this really nice? The hawk and the hedgehog will hold it, right? They'll live in it. The owl and the raven, they'll live in it. Last week, I found a can of gold spray paint in the utility closet back there, and I thought I'd take it upon myself to touch up the old rusty cross that you can see right here. Can everybody see this little cross here? Right? So I thought I'd take it upon myself to paint over some of the rusted parts. And I shouldn't have done this. I should have checked with somebody. In fact, the day after a worship, I remember Rick and Dan and Diane were standing out there and said, I don't remember giving permission for, who painted this? Who painted this? And then I came by, I'm like, guilty, right? I did it. And I shouldn't have done it. So I talked to Cheryl and I prayed about it and I said, I'm gonna just go sand off that paint, And so I went and I got a sander and I got some sand and I started to sand it, and inside that cross is a swarm of yellow jackets, right? And they all come out at once and they sting me in the wrist and the side and they get up my shirt and I went, ah, And so I stopped sanding. So you'll still see the gold paint there. Now, this is what I thought. My immediate reaction was, that serves me right? That serves me right. I should not have tried to cover the past, right? This is this icon of the past with just this temporary gold spray paint, right? I shouldn't have tried to gloss over things, because the rust and the scratches, that's part of the message, isn't it, right? In the same way, I'm claiming for you with this passage the hawk and the hedgehog. Here they are, out there in the wilderness. Can you imagine them possessing the land, possessing all that we hold dear? I can imagine verse 13 in today's passage coming true. Verse 13, which says that thorns will overtake our strongholds, and nettles and thistles our fortresses. Renata and I, while Gail was on vacation, Renata and I went to the garden last Tuesday, and there were several garden plots that are overwhelmed with big, noxious, hairy, audacious weeds. And Renata's a sweetheart, and she's 85 years old, and she's yanking these suckers out, right? And I get in there and I start yanking out, and it's like, wow, how did this happen? This is our community garden, and it's overcome with weeds, right? Now, I'm not saying this to encourage you to feel guilty and say, oh, I want to go pull some weeds too. That's not it, even though it is therapeutic. It's this idea of how the beautiful community garden, right, that we set in motion, all it takes is 1 or 2 seasons, and it reverts back to nettles and thistles and weeds and so forth and so on. And I just wonder about our relationships too, right? Even though we take for granted our families and our friendships, right? Without the work that we put in, how easily they would slip into weeds and thistles, right? Hedgehogs and hawks. Cheryl and I had a dinner party a few weeks ago in which we invited some neighbors from across the street. It was great. We had about 6 of us around the table. And we were having some wine and cheese, and the pork was simmering on the grill. I was trying not to overcook it. And everything was going along very nicely when a representative from a pest control company came to our door, right? Dinner time. And Cheryl politely, I'll have to ask her to offer the direct quote, but she politely asked him to, go away. What did you say, Cheryl? It's not a good time. I have company. We're not interested, right? And I started to think about that. I started to think about how eager we are to kind of keep the pests out, right? And for good reason, right? We want to have clean houses, and we want to be safe. We don't want poisonous spiders like Jonah was telling us to bite us. And yet, how much time and energy do we spend keeping things at bay, right? Keeping the wilderness apart from us? And what if we acknowledged, as Julie did in her prayer, how quickly, right, the wilderness without God's covenant can overtake us, swarm over us? Blaise Pascal is another great philosopher, and he says, man is only a reed, the weakest in nature, but he is a thinking reed. There is no need for the whole universe to take up arms to crush him. A vapor, a drop of water is enough to kill him. But even if the universe were to crush him, man would still be nobler than his slayer, because he knows that he is dying, and the advantage the universe has over him. The universe knows none of this. So if you were to ask me what the good news of this passage is, it is that we know we know the danger of the wilderness. We know also that the wilderness is waiting, crying out, right, for the revealing of the children of God, right? We are meant to live in relationship with each other, with all of creation, the hawk and the hedgehog, the raven and the owl. Let's pray together.